Good afternoon and welcome those in attendance to the Delta Conveyance Design and Construction Authority regular Finance Committee meeting for April 16th, 2026. And with that, I'd like to call the meeting to order and move on to item 2, roll call and Pledge of Allegiance. Please call the roll.
Gladly. Committee Chair Martin.
Present.
Thank you. Director Millibar.
Here.
Thank you. And alternate director and committee member, Ms. Palmer.
I'm here.
Thank you. And I don't see any of the alternate directors online. So we have a quorum of the committee.
All right, very good. Would you please stand, place your hand over your heart, and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Move on to item 3, public comment. Members of the public may address the committee on matters that are within the committee's jurisdiction, but not on the agenda at this time. Speakers are generally limited to 3 minutes each. However, the chair may further limit this time when reasonable based on the circumstances. Persons wishing to speak may do so remotely through the electronic meeting link by scanning the QR code or teleconference number when recognized by the chair. DCA encourages public comment and requests that speakers present their remarks in a respectful manner within the established time limits and focus on issues which directly affect the DCA or are within its jurisdiction. Do we have any public comment?
Committee Chair Martin, we do not have any public comment requests online. I'd like to confirm that we have yet to receive public comment requests at your location.
No request.
And at committee member Millibar?
No request.
Okay, thank you. And committee member Palmer?
No requests.
Okay, thank you. We can proceed.
Very good. We can move on to item 4, approval of the minutes of the June 12th, 2025 Finance Committee meeting minutes.
Move we approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we need to ask for public comment on that?
Yes, please.
Do we have any public comment?
I can confirm that we have not received public comment requests for this item.
No requests at our location.
Okay. And then committee member Millibar?
No.
Okay.
No.
And committee member Palmer?
No, none.
Okay. Thank you.
And none
Very
here,
good.
Claudia. None
Oh,
here.
state water contract. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I can move to take a vote.
Yes.
Do we have a motion?
Yes, Sarah.
Yes. Okay.
Sarah was a first, and committee member Millibar was a second.
Okay.
Committee Chair Martin,
Yes.
committee member Millibar,
Yes.
and committee member Palmer.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Meeting minutes approved.
Very good. We can move to item 5, discussion items. We have one item. Item A, DCA fiscal year 26-27 budget overview and approach. Recommended action information only is, Graham, are you presenting this?
Yes, I am.
Very good. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Martin. So this is an overview to talk through the process, lay out the timeline. We don't have the draft budget numbers ready to share yet, but that will be the main topic of the next committee's meeting in May. So this is just a setup agenda to talk through with the committee, the steps that we anticipate, and make sure that everyone has a clear path, clear understanding of the path forward. And Claudia, if we could go to the next slide, please, we'll go ahead and jump in.
Graham, before you proceed, can you just comment on whether there's any changes from the process we used last year?
I can. There are no changes to the process used last year.
Very good. That's helpful.
Great. I will highlight, Chair Martin, there's a change internal, but it won't affect the committee's process, and I will talk to it here in a minute. It's only related to the billing rates that were developed. So it's a very detailed, focused topic, and I'll touch on it here in a couple of slides.
Okay, very good.
So just to touch on the Finance Committee's role with the DCA, was established by the Board of Directors as a standing committee. It is a Brown Act body to provide initial review and recommendations to the Board of Directors on principally on the adoption of the annual DCA budget and any proposed modifications or amendments. Additionally, the committee could be requested to lead or be a part of preparation review of annual DCA financial audits, annual comprehensive financial reports or similar reports, or any other financial or related items as delegated by the board or requested by the executive director or treasurer. To date, the Finance Committee's role has really been focused on the annual budgeting process. Next slide, Claudia. A couple of just high-level requirements are we currently execute on fiscal years that begin July 1 of each year and end June 30th of the following year. The DCA Board of Directors approval of the fiscal year budget is needed by the end of June. We generally target that for the June board meeting, meaning the third Thursday of June, in order to allow for the finalization and execution of task orders that would fund and kick off work starting July 1. There is a provision of the Joint Exercise of Powers Agreement that requires the DCA provide the draft fiscal year budget and task orders to the Delta Conveyance Office of DWR 60 days prior to adoption. So that date is first part of next week. So we're preparing to issue that initial package to DCO, and then we'll be prepared to gather their feedback, incorporate any comments or revisions prior to coming to this committee in May and beginning to share the draft budget with you all in the public. Hang on, Claudia, stay there for 1 sec. So we currently execute task orders on an annual basis. So this is, really, it's a conservative approach right now that we've been able to manage through. I do see this changing over time as we start transitioning the program into the delivery phase. But currently with the invoicing and budgeting process and really the funding process that we have with the department, it's the cleanest to have these fiscal year breaks and annual task orders. We do on an annual basis a bottoms-up estimate from each vendor to develop the budget and scope, and then use that to create our annual baseline for the program. So that's the curve that we're then reporting against in the monthly report going forward. So that creates the monthly expenditures, which cumulatively represent the annual spend curve. And you as board members are all very familiar with that as part of the monthly board report. Okay, next slide, Claudia. So some internal, just approach expectations. This first bullet is different, Chair Martin. So that's what I was referring to. As of the end of last fiscal year, we are no longer including foreseeable travel costs within billing rates. We're now employing through an updated travel policy, separate reimbursement of expenditures for actual costs. So these come in through the invoices clearly and are incurred, are reimbursed based on that actual incurred cost. That is a change. The only real change from your perspective is that the billing rates now do not have those costs embedded within them. So if you were comparing rates from last year to this year, actually, when we went through the process last year, we had already removed this as well. So I guess scratch that. We made this correction right before the budgeting process completed last year. So anyway, we do include within the billing rates an assumed 3% escalation. So that's to capture what will likely be changes that occur throughout the year in terms of individual billing rates. Some of them are multiplier rates, so they're based on a base labor. Some are unit rates, but in any rate, there will be generally some sort of increase through the year that we want to capture in the budgeting process now. As a practice, we do not roll over task order budgets and scope from one year to the next. We have a clean break between each fiscal year to the next. So uncompleted scope, we will descope it out of the task order for a current year, consider whether it should be added to the next task order, and it's added as a separate item, included in the scope, and budgeted appropriately for the next fiscal year. So it's a pretty rigorous process to keep the task orders and budgets aligned with the actual work that's being conducted, so that we can close out each fiscal year with clear documentation of costs spent, work products received, ensuring that we have all those filed on record, and that the task orders, which are extensions of the contracts, reflect all of that completed work. There's naturally a lot of change through the fiscal year. It's anticipated and expected. You know, what we envision is our best guess, but it is really normal for all of that to kind of meander and shift as we get through the year. And so at a minimum, we tend to have a task order closeout process where we reconcile the work scope, the budgets, and ensure that we have a clean closeout process. Any items that are not included in the budget during the annual process, we then manage through our change management process. And so typically we do include an undefined allowance or even a defined allowance within a couple of locations. It can be within the executive office. Last year, we had a pretty significant reserve that was associated with geotech, and that was really to acknowledge that we weren't able to do geotech because it was prevented by the injunction. We wanted the funds positioned in the right location within the budget. In the event that we were able to get back to that work, we would amend contracts and add that. So we don't issue all of our budget. We do have reserve funds that we request the board approve that are managed by myself to ensure that we can manage change through the process. We do our best to anticipate what those changes may be, and where we can do that, we tend to want to kind of park those reserve funds in the right location within our budget structure so that we're sort of aligning it pretty well with how we anticipate spending. Okay, and I'll stop here. I have a couple more slides, Chair Martin, but I didn't mention at the beginning. I'm happy to take questions along the way. So if there's any questions so far on what you've heard, we could pause here if you prefer, or I can keep going and just wait till the end. It's really up to you, Chair Martin. Oh, I think you might be muted.
We generally take public comment before we ask questions, but I'm okay with opening it up during your presentation.
No, well, I don't need to upset things. We can keep going then if that's the typical practice. My apologies. Okay, then let's keep going, Claudia. So we've got our scope and budget development. So the process is to identify the desired scope of work for the fiscal year. We're now using a very detailed and pretty sophisticated schedule that helps to inform our scope of work. We then go through a process of confirming that we have the contractual coverage as a first step. If there's any work activities that are, or any contracts that are going to require amendment or adjustment in order to support the budget for the next fiscal year, that's certainly a key consideration. And I think, for instance, we will be bringing a contract or two to the board as we close out this fiscal year and prepare for the next that needs amendment in order to support the work that we'd like to have done in FY 26-27. Then we, using that defined scope of work, request cost estimates from all of our vendors, contractors and vendors. They develop a bottoms-up level of effort and associated direct costs using approved contract rates. So we have within our Trimble, our full process and accounting system, all of the approved rates for all the individuals who've been onboarded to the program. They use those approved rates to develop their cost estimate associated with that defined scope of work. They provide that initially to the DCA. We pool all of it together and then go through the detailed analysis of the scope that's been outlined, the budget assigned to that scope, and a variety of other sort of confirm they're using the right rates, or they're accounting for subcontractor markups and all of that. In many cases, we then negotiate the task order scope and budget, and then confirm that, with that negotiation, we're still good with the existing contract capacity. And then finally, review, update, finalize for board of directors adoption targeted for June. This is, I think, a simplified version of the process. In reality, this jumps over the initial draft that's shared with DCO, first of all. Then there's the process of sharing this draft to the board committee, receiving any comments, clarifications, questions that may have us go back and reconsider some portions, but ultimately coming back to the board in June for final approval and adoption. Next slide, please. So the work breakdown structure, we share this with the board on an annual basis, just to provide some context in terms of the detailed levels of what we do versus the higher levels that we share to the DCA board at these meetings. So we have what we call levels 1 and 2. So there's the real summary level information. Then there's the budget workbook, which has some aggregation involved, but underneath that we have very detailed budget workbooks and overall consolidation of all that information. So there's a detail level that's getting down to individual billing rates, individual work tasks, individual people, how many hours, and it racks up and up and up to these different levels. But I think my understanding, Chair Martin, is that in the last year's process was sufficient for your review at the committee, and our intention would be to follow that same process, pending any feedback that the committee may have.
Yes, unless the committee member has an issue with that, I think last year's process worked well.
Great. So next slide, please, Claudia. I have a little bit of heartburn with this slide because it's impossible to read. The point is that we've got 3 phases within our WBS, and really the left side of the screen is what's important. Those 3 phases matter because our work breakdown structure is how we organize all of the budgeting activities for the DCA across the program. We build out the WBS to cover all phases of the program, from the initial permitting phases through design and construction all the way to program closeout. So at the highest level, these phases are described on the left-hand side in the bullets. We have the Program Management Office, the PMO. This is the cross-functional organizational support that will exist throughout the entire life of the program. So the Program Management Office exists now, and it will continue to exist through design, construction, and closeout. It's built out. You can tell by just the magnitude, sort of all the stuff in sort of that purple color is all Program Management Office sub-activities that are built out within the system. It includes the executive office. It includes treasury, council, program controls, community engagement. So a number of functions that are currently stood up now and will continue to be necessary functions. Program initiation is really limited to the initiation, environmental permitting phase, evaluation of alternatives. A lot of the work now that's winding down, although we're not entirely done with the permitting efforts. And so there still is some engineering work that's happening within program initiation. Back when we were doing geotech to support permits, the field work was also in program initiation because we were looking at a variety of different alternatives. We were looking at a variety of different alignments and configurations. But now the only thing that's still functional within program initiation is some of the limited engineering work, the basis of design report that we're starting to sort of wrap up. And then as the permits are fully complete, this phase will close out. program delivery is ultimately the phase that would include all final design and construction projects managed by the PMO, the Program Management Office. The initial establishment of program delivery is limited just to the geotech work and survey work that is in support of ultimately final design and construction. So this is where we want to go ahead and establish these early pre-design elements of program delivery so that we can capture costs associated with delivery and not inadvertently sort of inflate the costs associated with permitting, because that's the other location, or alternatively inflate the costs associated with the Program Management Office by burying these fieldwork activities. They are appropriately included in program delivery. Okay, next slide, please. And I think I covered kind of a lot of what these next slides touch on, so we don't need to bog down too much here. But within the Program Management Office, there are 13 budget categories, as you see listed here. And so they include a number of significant functions that I think it's pretty self-explanatory. But this is where the heart of the owner side of the organization exists within the program. Okay, next slide, Claudia. As I mentioned, program initiation at this point is really only necessary for the engineering work. And as we complete the major permit activities, wind down the BODR and the cost estimate, and start to transition into delivery, program initiation will be closed out. But for the time being, it's where the existing engineering work is being performed. Next slide. There's a version of this for field work, which describes that the PI fieldwork, program initiation fieldwork task, is now closed. We're no longer putting funds there. We're instead moving all of those activities into the program delivery phase. And that's so that within our funding and financial system, we're able to track costs appropriately and allocate them to the right bucket. Okay, next slide, please, Claudia. So within program delivery, these currently are pre-design activities associated with any of the ongoing work, but it will ultimately include a lot more than just the field investigation efforts. But for now, it's limited to field investigations. So that's the geotech program, field surveying, any other exploratory work. But ultimately, this will be the fully built out location for all design and construction activities. So this will become the lion's share of all work will be performed under the program delivery phase of our work breakdown structure. Okay, go ahead. So this is our last slide. We've got the timeline graphic. So we have today indicated April 16th, the first meeting of the Finance Committee. We will be delivering our draft materials to the Delta Conveyance Office on Monday. So that's all of our draft budget task order drafts. We have then the next Finance Committee meeting on May 21st. Prior to that, about a week prior, we will be providing the committee draft task orders and other budget documentation for you to review. You'll recall that we provide that in a number of different formats and try and allow you to be able to slice and dice and see it from different angles to make sense of it. And so I look forward to sharing all that information and collecting feedback. We will then, on June 10th, finalize our refinements to the draft budget based on any feedback collected. We've got an intermediate finance committee on June 11th, so that does not follow a DCA board meeting. That's an in-betweener so that we can make sure that we've captured any final commentary from the finance committee and ensure that you're in a position to make a recommendation to the full board on the 18th for adoption of that budget. Okay, I think, Claudia, if you will go to the next slide, that completes the presentation, and I would be happy to take any questions.
Okay. Have we received any public comment on Mr. Graham's presentation? None here at the Santa Clarita.
None at,
Committee Chair Martin, we have not.
None here at State Water Contractors.
and none at Kern County.
And none at Zone 7.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we can open up to questions from the committee if there are any. Again, it's a similar process to last year, and so hopefully this will provide the committee with adequate information to make some logical and reasonable judgments on the budget before we take it to the board. So any questions from committee?
Yep.
Committee Chair Martin, it looks like Committee Member Palmer has her hand up.
Go
Okay.
ahead,
Yeah,
Sarah.
I just wanted to ask about the unallocated reserves. I know sometimes reserves, and this may not be relevant at this point, but are there limits on how much you can have in these unallocated reserves?
I'm going to look to Josh, but currently there are no limits. Committee Member Palmer.
Yeah, there's no legal limits. It's what the finance committee and board are comfortable with.
Okay, so it's basically just a parking spot, and if we had a big bunch of stuff coming up, we could put a big bunch of stuff in there. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so that's basically where we're parking all the stuff for some of the geotech and that kind of thing, correct?
That is correct. That's what we did last year, and I suspect we will have some similar considerations this year.
Okay, good. And then I have another just a brief little comment or question. Under program initiation, is this where we got into trouble with calling things program initiation, where they said, "Hey, you started this and you're not supposed to," and then we got into a little legal problem? Is that it?
I think I'm recalling there being some sensitivity around the word implementation.
Implementation, that was it. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, and I think we did some, thought we had to approach that thoughtfully, Committee Member Palmer, when we established the program delivery phase. That we were careful to clarify that that does not mean that we think we are implementing this project. It's just that we want to stand up the early pre-design functions so that we can properly track and capture costs associated with geotech. I think we were just very careful to communicate that we did not, we were not saying that we are beginning implementation.
Okay, so yeah, I got mixed up between initiation and implementation,
Yes.
and I know that we did have some problems with the semantics on that. Okay, thanks. That was it.
To address your comment, Sarah, I'm just hoping we don't have that many known unknowns going into this next phase of work. But if we do, I know we'll have a reasonable assessment of the estimated cost. So.
Yes, that's correct. I anticipate at this point in time, Chair Martin, that likely the biggest uncertainty we will have in the next fiscal year will again likely be geotechnical investigations and field surveys. And at this point, although the injunction has been removed, unfortunately the entry orders that were granted by the courts or acquired through voluntary signing of temporary entry permits, many of those have needed to be extended because we've been enjoined for quite some time. And some of the extension processes for court-ordered entry require court granting those extensions. And so our ability to conduct the work in a certain time frame is affected by the court's timing. So we have to build in some conservatisms into our budget so that if for instance, we have to move very, very quickly to collect all of that information, we have carved out enough budget to do that. We don't necessarily want to issue all of that budget to our vendors right out of the gate. We want to have that set aside within the budget so that if and when we need to react, we have the funds available. So similar to last year, where we had similarly a pretty sizable chunk of reserve positioned in geotech pending resolution of the injunction. It's now a slightly different issue, but I still envision that we're going to have a fairly sizable budget amount that resides with geotech and survey.
This is Noah Bart. I have a question. Is there any way that in the major components of costs, that there could be an example of the type of work that is being done so that we could see, you know, what each contractor is working on. You know, it's been hard to visualize, you know, what some of the progress reports look like, because we haven't been able to see them. Is that do you understand what I'm asking for?
Yes, I do. And I there's probably a couple of ways that could be addressed. I mean, there's a number of ongoing work activities. Of course, we talk principally about the major efforts like the basis of design report, which will be a voluminous document that we're going to be sharing with the Department of Water Resources and the PWAs for review coming up in May. And so one potential way would be to, you know, I'm looking at Josh here. I mean, I guess, is it just providing access to that work product, Josh, to the committee members if they wanted to take a look at that draft work product?
Yeah, that should work, and we can follow up if there's a tweak to that should be okay.
So that's one alternative. But if you'd rather get just a spot check in terms of what all the vendors are working on, that might be something we could do one-on-one to any committee member who's interested. And you know, I think we walked through last year, Marty, a kind of a version of that with some of the task orders, and I think we could do something maybe slightly different if that would help.
If I recall, Graham, the task order descriptions were, even if they were brief, they were at least describe the actual work that's included under that task order.
They do. That's correct. They describe. Sorry, go ahead.
I was looking for something more visual. And if you can't do it because of Brown Act or whatever, that's fine. I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can think through, Director or Committee Member Millibar, you know, as to whether providing access or examples is the most appropriate way to get that information to the committee, and then circle back if the committee's comfortable with that approach.
Yeah, it might be something that we all three of us would be interested in, that exposure.
As I recall last year, the description of the task order was pretty close to what, at least I believe, I needed it to understand where these numbers are coming from.
Yeah, I guess I'm more interested in an example of work product rather than a big paragraph.
Yeah, very good. So how about we take that comment and we'll talk with I'll talk with Josh and Claudia about the best way by which we could fold you into that, and if there's other, we'll offer the same to the other committee members and get back to you.
All right.
Are you talking about like a photograph of it? Of the
No.
Really? I mean,
No.
That sound good, Martin?
Pardon?
Does that sound like a reasonable approach, Marty?
Yeah, they can get back to us and see what they can put together. It doesn't have to be, you know, I mean, just some examples of work progress at a point in time.
Yeah, I think I understand.
Okay,
Will do.
Sarah, do you have any further questions for Graham on this presentation?
No, I'm good on this.
Yeah, so am I. And Marty, are you have any further questions?
No, that was my
Very good. Then I
main.
believe that takes care of item 5A. And we can move to item 6, reports and announcements. Oh, by the way, we didn't have any public comment on 5, so any reports or announcements under item 6A? Nothing from you, Graham, right?
Nothing from me. Thank you.
Okay. Anything from the committee members?
Nope.
Very good. Then we have nothing to ask for public comment on. Moves us on to item 7, adjournment, and we are hereby adjourned. Thank you for everyone's time and patience to sit through the board meeting and wait for our finance committee. We will see you at the next finance committee.